Hello viewers, and welcome to another Amazing Facts video with your host Mr. Amazing. In case you don't know, I make Amazing Facts videos every week, and if you're new to the channel, maybe hit the notification button so you never miss out. This time it's about trains. The mining industry uses trains all the time as they can haul massive amounts of very heavy material over vast distances. But in Sweden they've come up with a fantastic way of powering these lumbering monsters. Taking ore from the mines of northern Swedish mountains, the trains are 750 metres long and consist of almost 70 trucks. This needs an incredibly powerful electric locomotive to pull them, but the journey from the mountains to the shipping points at harbours in Sweden and Norway is almost entirely downhill. This means that the train can coast a lot of the way, using very little power and storing its braking energy in batteries. It only takes a fifth of this electric energy to power the train to the harbours, meaning that the remaining 80% can be used to power the train back up to the mines again, resulting in a service that completely powers itself. After his assassination in 1865, Abe Lincoln's body went on a tour of 180 cities across 7 states before arriving in his hometown of Springfield, Illinois, to be buried. The train draped in black was a massive publicity win for George Pullman, who, as well as supplying carriages for the funeral train, lent a number of his Pullman sleeper carriages to rail companies wanting to run Lincoln specials to Springfield for mourners to pay their respects. Rail travel was still somewhat of a novelty in the USA at the time, and the Lincoln funeral was many Americans' first look at the train. Despite the prohibitive cost of the Pullman sleeper carriage, the luxury and finish of something that had previously been very utilitarian was so impressive it became, if not front-page news, then certainly a mild sensation. Demand took off, and Pullman sleepers were in service all the way up to 1968. In 2001 and 2010, the New York Transportation Authority, instead of disposing of old trains, saved $30 million by turning them into new homes for fish. That's right, in that time 2,580 subway cars were taken to the MTA's workshops in Manhattan, stripped, cleaned, loaded onto ships and taken off the coast of New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland and South Carolina, where they became artificial reefs providing new habitats for marine life. The reefs now provide homes for, among others, sea bass, tuna, mackerel, flounder, blue mussels, sponges, barnacle and coral. I've had pods of dolphins come swim around and even sea turtles swimming through them, says photographer Bob Martori, one of the people who documented the project, a pleasingly unusual end for these classic vehicles. History's great robberies, the Great Train Robbery, was not named because it was a great robbery. Actually, it was pretty amateurish, but because of the amount of money taken. On 8th of August 1963, a gang of 15 men attacked a mail train travelling from Glasgow to London and made off for $2.6 million, about $61 million in today's money. After loading the money onto cars and vans, the gang planned to meet at a farmhouse around 45 minutes' drive from the site of the robbery. One of the gang members told the workers on the train not to move for half an hour, and the police assumed, rightly, that this meant that the gang had reconvened somewhere nearby instead of dispersing in different directions. At the farmhouse, the gang celebrated and famously played Monopoly using the stolen money. The plan had been for one of the gang to then stay behind and burn the farm down, removing all evidence. A day or so after they had left, they learned that he'd fled with his share without doing the job. But that time was too late. The police had found the farm littered with banknotes, beer bottles, and the famous Monopoly set. Virtually the entire gang, all of whom were known criminals, were swiftly rounded up. The course of history could have been changed to some degree on the afternoon of 9th of June 1865. Charles Dickens was travelling with his mistress Ellen Turin and slightly elderly her mother when the train derailed while crossing a viaduct due to a miscommunication. A length of track had been removed and the resulting crash killed 10 passengers and injured 40 more. Dickens' carriage was left teetering on the edge of the viaduct and he clambered gingerly out through the wreckage to safety, only to remember he'd left the manuscript for the final part of his upcoming serialization of Our Mutual Friend on board, so he actually climbed back in to retrieve it. He also tried his best to tend to the wounded, some of whom died in his care while waiting for help to arrive. The incident affected Dickens severely. He lost his voice for 2 whole weeks and developed, some would say, an entirely understandable fear of train travel. I am a little shaken, he wrote a few days later to a friend, not by the beating and dragging of the carriage in which I was in, but by the hard work afterwards in getting out, the dying and dead, which was a most horrible experience indeed. Ghost trains do exist, Kind of. The underfunded and unloved British rail network goes in for kicking from commuters all over the world too often. What's even stranger is that in order to keep some lines open, the rail companies will run ghost services that aren't even advertised and operate just often enough to keep a line or station open, saving on the cost of consultation, possible renovation or total removal, and the public backlash that would come with removing a route, line or station, only for ticket prices to keep increasing. So on these lines, the very occasional train, often a single carriage offering either no sensible connections or no advertised way to buy a ticket, would trundle up and back, stopping at virtually abandoned stations to pick up and drop off almost absolutely nobody, purely to keep railway companies and local governments happy. Polesworth Station in Warwickshire, for example, had 6 weekday services up until the end of the 1980s, now just has one, the 7:26 to Crewe. The train only stops as it's travelling north, can't stop in the southbound track, as the bridge at that platform was removed in 2005 and never rebuilt, rendering it inaccessible. While major commuter lines suffer soaring prices, overcrowding, angry commuters and badly maintained infrastructures, the ghost train was rattled on as a symbol of utter folly. If you're wealthy enough to own your own private railway carriage, you can travel in style across the USA, as Amtrak will let you hitch your carriage onto any scheduled train services between specified locations. You don't have to buy a ticket, which saves you money, but you do have to pay an annual registration fee for your private carriage, as well as a yearly safety inspection, a mileage rate based on where and when you're travelling, and additional charges for any extra services you might require from Amtrak. Oh, and you do have to buy the carriage in the first place, of course. And balance, perhaps it's better just to travel like everybody else. The longest stretch of completely straight track in the world is in Australia. It's part of the Trans-Australian Railway and crosses the Nullarbor Plain for 478 kilometres, 278 miles, not deviating even slightly. It can be seen even from space, according to the former astronaut Andy Thomas. It's a very fine line. It's like someone has drawn a very fine pencil line across the desert. Originally built as part of an incentive programme to encourage citizens of far-flung Perth and Western Australia as a whole to join the newly founded Commonwealth of Australia, the Trans-Australian Railway is part of the Indian Pacific Line, a service that runs between Sydney and Perth. A one-way trip takes between 65 and 70 hours depending on scheduling, and is widely accepted as one of the great railway journeys of the world. Travel packages come with all meals included, fine wines, cocktails, luxurious sleeping arrangements, and stops at strategic points to see some of Australia's most stunning scenery. The price for all this? Well, packages start at a mere €2,599. So get saving! No, it's not that I've run out of facts. This is simply the words that come together to make up the name of a rail line. Specifically, the Wag-Sasa Bush Line, a now retired rail line that transported visitors outside the outskirts of San Diego Zoo for over 3 decades. Andy Fost, son of zoo designer Chuck Fost, confirms the story. They were having a brainstorming session to come up with a name for the line and he hit a brick wall. No good ideas at all. Someone in frustration said, Wagsa. No one knew what he meant. Who gives a bleep anyway, came the reply. Chuck Beeler, one of the zoo officials, sent it to be approved by the committee. Wagsa was just a neat African-sounding name. They said that sounds great without any knowledge of what it meant. I was one of the few who did. We got a good few chuckles out of that, and it survived throughout the years. That was some amazing facts about trains. Some nice stories there for you. We hope you really enjoyed these stories. And tomorrow we're going to have another amazing facts video for you. This one's going to be about bears of all different kinds and sorts. Black bears, grizzly bears, maybe even some polar bears we might throw in there. Well, until tomorrow's video, we hope you have an amazing day and enjoy it. Goodbye. We are also taking ideas for future videos. If you have any idea of something you might like to see, please leave a comment below this video telling me what you would like to see, and we will do our best to make a video on that subject. Thank you. And no, we're not going to talk about Yogi Bear.
Hobos.